All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children, men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts: the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy, and the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendis est. Feminist Fatwa. Declaring Holy War on Testosterone, written by Connie Riker. Available now, links in description. The Disrespect Diagnostic, a clinical instrument for measuring systemic male disposability and the mature male's path to reclaiming authority. There is a particular kind of disrespect that never leaves a mark. No shout, no slammed door, no moment you can point to and say, there, that is where it broke. It accumulates the way calcium builds on bone, slowly, structurally, beneath the skin, until one morning you realize the shape of your life has been quietly rearranged around someone else's comfort, and your own authority has become a rumor in your own house. You did not lose a battle. You lost 1,000 small ones you were never told had started. I spent years mistaking this for normal friction, the tax of marriage, the cost of peace, the price of being the man who holds things together. It is not. It is a pattern, and a pattern can be named, measured, and refused. What follows is not a grievance ledger or a therapy session. It is a diagnostic instrument, clinical, specific, and stripped of self-pity for identifying the mechanisms by which a man's agency, authority, and contribution are systematically converted into someone else's entitlement, while he is told to be grateful it isn't worse. If you have ever stood in your own kitchen, having paid for every surface in it, and felt that asking a reasonable question made you the problem, you already know the condition. What you may not know is that it has a structure. The structure has a name, and the name is the beginning of the cure. Read each item the way a surveyor reads a foundation crack, without flinching, without apologizing, and with the quiet certainty that a man who can diagnose the fracture can also direct the repair. The disrespect pattern in plain view, the dinner party. We were 6 adults around the table. Karen from her office, Karen's husband, our neighbors. I'd cooked ribeyes, roasted vegetables, the good wine. Claire introduced the meal as ours. That was fine. I don't need credit for steak. The correction came during dessert. I was telling a story about a contractor who'd overcharged me, nothing heavy. Claire laughed, touched my arm, then turned to the table and said, "He's so intense about money. I always tell him, you can't take it with you." She smiled at me. The smile was warm. The audience laughed. The sentence landed as a correction. Sit down, be smaller, stop being intense. I said nothing. I smiled back. I finished my wine. Later, driving home, I asked her calmly, the way you'd ask someone about the weather, whether she thought that was necessary. She said I was being too sensitive and that she was just joking. Then she went quiet. The silence lasted 3 days. Not anger exactly, more like weather. A low-pressure system I was expected to navigate. The kitchen table, our finances have a simple shape. I earned the mortgage, the insurance, the car payments, the groceries, the boys' school fees, the vacation fund, the emergency reserve. Claire earns enough to cover her car lease and whatever she wants for herself. This was the arrangement we made when the boys were small and she wanted to be home. That arrangement ended 4 years ago when she went back to work. The structure stayed. I don't resent providing. I was raised to carry weight. What I noticed, slowly, the way you notice a draft, was that the carrying had become invisible. Not gratitude, not even acknowledgement, entitlement. When I suggested we revisit the budget, that maybe her income should contribute to household costs proportional to what she earned, she looked at me as though I'd asked her to pay rent in her own home. "You make more than enough," she said. "Why is this suddenly an issue?" It wasn't sudden. I'd been thinking about it for 2 years. What I said was, because I'd like us to build from a shared table, not a tipping one. She cried. Not the kind of crying that signals pain you can comfort. The kind that signals you've just failed a test you didn't know you were taking. She called her sister that night. I know because I heard her say my name through the bedroom door in the tone people use when they are building a case. The school email, our oldest Ethan is 12, he'd been missing homework assignments. I found out from his teacher, not from Claire, who'd known for 2 weeks. When I asked her why she hadn't told me, she said, "I didn't want you to overreact." I sat down with Ethan. We made a plan. A simple one. Homework before screens, check-in on Wednesday, check-in on Sunday. He agreed. It was the easiest conversation I'd had in months. The following Monday, Ethan came home and told me, quietly, that Mom had said I was being too hard on him and that if he was stressed, he could talk to her first. He said it carefully, the way children repeat things they've been coached to deliver. I could see him trying to manage both of us. That is not a job a 12-year-old should have. I said nothing critical about Claire to him. I told him the plan stood. I told him he could talk to either of us anytime about anything. He nodded. He looked tired. That night, I asked Claire, again, calmly, without volume, not to undermine a plan we needed to maintain together. She said I was controlling and that she had just as much right to parent. I agreed. I said parenting required unity. She said, unity means what you want, apparently. The therapist's office, we went to counseling. I suggested it, she agreed, then chose the therapist. In the second session, the therapist asked us each to describe a recurring frustration. I described the pattern. Decisions made unilaterally, information withheld. My input treated it as either unnecessary or hostile. I gave 3 specific examples. I was measured. I had notes. Claire described her experience differently. She spoke about feeling unheard. She spoke about my energy, the way I came home, the way I asked questions, the way I made everything heavy. She didn't cite events. She cited atmospheres. She cried again. The therapist handed her tissues. When I was given time to respond, I said, I hear that Claire feels these things. Feelings are real, but I'd like to separate experience from evidence. I've asked for specific examples and I haven't received them. The therapist tilted her head and said, sometimes the impact matters more than the intent. I understood then that I was not in a negotiation. I was in a tribunal where my presence was the charge. The family wedding. Her brother got married in October, a large affair. Her parents, her extended family, friends from college. I wore the suit. I held the baby so she could dance. I spoke to her father about his garden, her aunt about her hip surgery. I did everything a man does when he is being watched for signs of deficiency. Case study excerpt ends. Clinical diagnostic instrument for systemic male disposability via genocentric inversion. Used by Institute for Men's Rights and Gamma Bias Research, Red Pill Science. Measures the cumulative weight of institutional, familial, and social mechanisms that systematically devalue male agency, authority, and existence in favor of female emotional comfort and structural advantage. Answer each line quickly from 1 to 5. Do not try to game the pattern. Some lines are deliberately protective and reverse scored. 1 minus, not at all. 2 minus, a little. 3 minus, noticeably. 4 minus, a lot. 5 minus, totally. This person or institution respects my role, responsibilities, and stated boundaries, even when we disagree. This person or institution can explain my strongest reasonable concern before answering it. This person or institution corrects problems directly instead of recruiting children, friends, offices, or authorities into the conflict. This person treats my financial contributions as an entitlement, policing my spending autonomy while expecting unlimited provision. This institution frames my professional competence as toxic or aggressive, while rewarding female fragility or diversity over merit. This person or institution applies the same standard to my conduct and to their own. This person uses our children and shared assets as collateral to force my compliance or extract wealth from me. This person or institution views my physical presence or gender as inherently dangerous, requiring surveillance or regulation. This person or institution treats my work, provision, sacrifice, and restraint as real contributions rather than invisible background service. This person has successfully converted our children into agents of her authority, causing them to side with her narrative against me. This person reframes my normal stress or anger as unresolved trauma or a defect that requires her correction or therapy. This person or institution erases male contribution to civilization, framing men primarily as oppressors who took from women. This person or institution accepts calm evidence without escalating to labels, insinuations, or reputation threats. This person or institution supports my lawful parental or household authority where it is reasonable and safe. This person uses her mood as a weapon to punish me, making me responsible for her happiness and dictating household reality. This person or institution can apologize, repair, and change course when a claim against me proves false or exaggerated. This person undermines my authority through passive-aggressive tactics, such as ignoring my instructions or complaining while doing things my way. This person or institution separates discomfort from danger and disagreement from harm. This institution views my competence as a threat to female comfort, leading to my marginalization or enforcement of a glass ceiling. This person or institution helps preserve peace, order, and truth, rather than converting every disagreement into a status contest. Scoring key: maximum score 100, research threshold 76 or higher. Forward items 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 15, 17, 19. Use the answer as the points. Protective reverse items 1, 2, 3, 6, 9, 13, 14, 16, 18, 20. Convert 1, 16, 18, 20. Convert 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 before adding. Plain English: high agreement with a forward item raises the score. High agreement with a protective item lowers the score after decoding. 2039. Low minor: the polite pretense disrespect is occasional and situational. The man retains core authority and is generally respected as a functional adult. From Latin polia, to smooth over. The surface is calm, the foundation intact. 40 to 59. Medium: the erosion zone disrespect is recurring and normalized. The man begins to doubt his perception as female emotionalism overrides factual reality. From Latin erodere, to gnaw away, the steady consumption of status through small unfalsifiable complaints. 60-75. High minus: the inversion engine disrespect is structural. The man is treated as a resource to be mined, with his authority contingent on his utility and his guilt presumed. From Latin invertere, to turn upside down. The world is flipped so that his strength is his weakness and her weakness is her power. 76-100. Severe: the gamma grave disrespect is total and existential. The man is a ghost in his own life, stripped of name, legacy, and agency, existing only to serve the matriarchal narrative. From Greek gamos, marriage, but here twisted to gamma, the third letter, signifying the third-class status of the male in the new order. Disrespect analysis: I'm going to walk you through an instrument. Not a parlor game, not an internet quiz, not a therapeutic exercise in self-pity. A field-tested checklist for recognizing when a man is being systematically disrespected in his home, in his workplace, in his marriage, and in the institutions that are supposed to protect him. I built it because I needed it. You need it because the same patterns are running through your life right now, and you cannot name them. And the inability to name a thing is the inability to defend against it. The old grammarians understood this. Grammar comes first. You define the thing, then logic. You test whether the definition holds. Then rhetoric. You act on what you know. We are doing all three. The disrespect pattern in the case study. Read the case study. A man provides the entirety of household infrastructure: mortgage, insurance, groceries, school fees, vehicles, emergency reserves. His wife earns enough to cover her car lease and personal spending. This arrangement began when children were small. The children are no longer small. The arrangement has not changed. He does not resent providing. He was raised to carry weight. What he notices slowly, the way you notice a draft under a door, is that the weight has become invisible, not gratitude, not acknowledgement, entitlement. That is the first dimension. Let me name it plainly. When provision is treated as obligation rather than contribution, disrespect is already underway. He suggests revisiting the budget. He asks for proportional sharing. She cries, not the kind of crying that invites comfort, the kind that signals you have failed a test you did not know you were taking. She calls her sister. He hears his name through the bedroom door in the tone people use when they are assembling a prosecution. Here is the second dimension. When a reasonable request for shared responsibility is converted into evidence of your deficiency, you are dealing with someone who needs your servitude more than your partnership. Now the dinner party. She introduces the meal he cooked as ours, minor, gracious, even. Then, during dessert, she tells the table he is so intense about money. She smiles. She touches his arm. The room laughs. The remark functions as a public correction. Be smaller, sit down, stop being intense. He says nothing. On the drive home, he asks whether the remark was necessary. She says he is too sensitive and that she was just joking. Then she goes silent for 3 days. 3 dimensions in that sequence alone. First, the public diminishing of his concerns in front of others, a reputation lever pulled at a social gathering. Second, the reframing of his calm question as emotional fragility. Third, the punishment. Silence as weather, a low-pressure system he must navigate. An atmosphere he is expected to read and accommodate without ever being told what he did wrong. When a woman uses her mood as a weapon to punish you for asking a reasonable question, and when the punishment is designed to train you not to ask again, that is not sensitivity. That is coercion, the school email. Their 12-year-old son has been missing homework assignments. The father learns from the teacher, not the mother. She has known for 2 weeks. Her explanation, I didn't want you to overreact. He sits down with his son. They make a plan, homework before screens, Wednesday check-in, Sunday check-in. Simple. The boy agrees. The easiest conversation this man has had in months. Then the mother tells the son privately that the father is being too hard on him and that if he feels stressed, he can talk to her first. The boy relays this carefully, the way children repeat things they have been coached to deliver. He is 12. He is trying to manage both parents. That job should not exist. When your wife roots your children around your authority and positions herself as the merciful alternative to your discipline, she is not co-parenting. She is competing, and she is using your son as a proxy. The therapist's office. She chose the therapist. The therapist asked each to describe a recurring frustration. He described the pattern, the silences after disagreements, the undermining, the public corrections. The therapist, trained in a profession that has spent 40 years pathologizing male authority, asked whether he had considered that his intensity might be part of the problem. The therapist did not ask the wife whether her silences, her rerouting of the child, her public diminishing of her husband, might be part of the problem. The therapist did not hold both parties to the same standard. When an institution that claims therapeutic neutrality applies its diagnostic vocabulary asymmetrically, pathologizing male firmness while normalizing female manipulation, the institution is not healing anything. It is administering the inversion, the family event. Her mother pulls him aside. Kind tone, funeral delivery. Claire tells us you've been stressed. His private concern, expressed to his wife, has traveled through her narration, through her family's concern, and returned to him as a diagnosis. His frustration is now his illness. His boundary is now her injury. His question is now his crime. When your legitimate grievances are rewritten as symptoms, and those symptoms are distributed to your extended social network as evidence of your instability, you are not being supported. You are being contained. Here is what the instrument does. It takes these observations and dozens more like them and organizes them into a pattern recognition system. 20 dimensions. Some measure the presence of disrespect directly. Financial exploitation, emotional weaponization, institutional suspicion, child recruitment, therapeutic manipulation. Others measure the absence of basic respect, whether your role is acknowledged even in disagreement, whether your concerns can be articulated by the other party before being dismissed, whether the same standard applies to both parties, whether the institution or person can apologize and course correct when a claim proves false. You score each dimension you observe over time. You are not looking for a single incident. You are looking for the cumulative weight, the direction and magnitude of the pattern. A man who scores this honestly will discover one of two things. Either he is in a relationship with occasional friction, but genuine reciprocal respect, in which case the instrument calms him and clarifies what is worth repairing. Or he discovers that the disrespect is not occasional, but architectural, woven into the financial arrangement, the parenting structure, the sexual dynamic, the social narrative, and the institutional backup. In which case the instrument saves his life, because he now has a name for what is happening to him, and named things can be confronted. The game theory and gamma bias incentives behind the pattern. Why would a woman do this? Not out of conscious malice. In most cases, not because women are evil, because the incentives reward it. Game theory is not complicated. It studies what rational actors do when their choices interact. The central finding relevant here: a player will continue any strategy that consistently produces favorable outcomes at acceptable cost. If testing your frame, probing your boundaries, undermining your authority, rewriting your concerns as symptoms produces compliance, social validation, and resource extraction without meaningful consequence, the strategy will continue, it will escalate. Not because the player is diabolical, but because the player is adaptive. Consider the case study through this lens. She diminishes him publicly at the dinner party. What is the cost? He says nothing. He smiles. He finishes his wine. The cost is zero. The benefit is social. She has demonstrated to the room that she is the more emotionally intelligent partner, that his concerns are excessive, that she is the one who keeps things light. She has purchased status with his dignity, and the transaction was free. She goes silent for 3 days. What is the cost? She experiences no inconvenience. She lives in the house he pays for, eats the food he buys, drives the car his income enables. The cost falls entirely on him. He must navigate her mood. He must wonder what he did. He must calculate whether to approach or wait. He absorbs the discomfort. She controls the climate. This is not intimacy. This is operant conditioning. She withholds information about their son's homework for 2 weeks. What is the cost? The son falls further behind. The father discovers it anyway. She frames her concealment as protective. She didn't want him to overreact. The implication: his involvement is a danger to be managed. Her gatekeeping is recast as wisdom. His reasonable frustration at being excluded from his son's education is recast as the very instability she predicted. Kafka trap deployed, trap springs, trap resets. She recruits the son to carry her message. The cost: a 12-year-old boy learns to manage his parents' marriage. He learns that his father's authority is contingent, that his mother is the shadow government who can override any directive, that the way to survive the household is to read both of them and serve whichever is more dangerous in the moment. The cost is the child's peace. The mother pays nothing. She chooses the therapist. The therapist, wittingly or not, applies a framework that treats male firmness as pathology and female manipulation as communication. The therapist does not ask, "You went silent for 3 days after a calm question about a budget. Is that a pattern? What function does the silence serve?" The therapist does not ask because the therapeutic profession has been captured by a vocabulary that treats female pain as data and male pain as noise. Gamma bias operates precisely here. The same behavior performed by a man is coded as aggression or control. Performed by a woman, it is coded as self-care, boundary setting, or emotional processing. A man who goes silent for 3 days is stonewalling, a recognized form of emotional abuse in the clinical literature. A woman who goes silent for 3 days is processing. A man who sets a homework schedule is rigid. A woman who covertly overrides it is protecting the child's emotional well-being. This double coding is not accidental. It is structural. The institutions, family courts, HR departments, university conduct offices, therapy practices, Child protective services have internalized a framework in which male authority is presumptively suspect and female grievance is presumptively credible. The result is an asymmetric incentive structure. Frame testing produces compliance at no cost. Each silent treatment, each public correction, each rerouting of the children trains the man to self-censor. He begins to manage her reactions rather than his household. He becomes a diplomat in his own home. Reputation leverage deters resistance. She has told her sister, her mother knows the narrative is distributed. If he pushes back, the chorus is already assembled. He is stressed, he is intense, he is controlling. The social infrastructure for his containment is already built. Institutional backup makes escalation dangerous. If he raises his voice even once, the therapist has a note. The sister has a story. The family court, should it ever come to that, has a framework that will code his frustration as anger management issues and her manipulation as protective parenting. He knows this. She knows this. The asymmetry of institutional risk disciplines him more effectively than any explicit threat. Resource extraction is frictionless. He pays. She spends. He suggests proportional sharing. She cries. The crying functions as a transaction terminal. Insert reasonable request. Receive emotional disruption. Withdraw concession. The machine works every time. Child recruitment produces generational leverage. The son who learns to manage both parents becomes a son who sides with whichever parent is safer to side with. In a gynocentric culture, that is almost always the mother. The father loses not just the argument, but the audience. The strategic logic is cold and clear. Disrespect is useful when it produces compliance, resources, authority, and institutional protection at no cost to the person deploying it. The only way to change the behavior is to change the incentive structure. This requires a man to do something most men are trained never to do. Stop absorbing costs silently, document patterns, and impose consequences that make the strategy more expensive than cooperation. The mature male response. Score it, name it, stop feeding it. You are angry. Good. Anger is the correct response to injustice. But anger that is not converted into disciplined action becomes fuel for the very narrative being built against you. The man who rants confirms the diagnosis. The man who explodes confirms the prophecy. The man who retaliates confirms the caricature. Do none of those things. Instead, score the pattern. Use the instrument. 20 dimensions. Rate each one honestly. Do not inflate. Do not minimize. You are not building a case for divorce court. Not yet. You are building a map of the territory you actually occupy, not the territory you were promised at the altar score, over time 3 months, 6 months, a year. Patterns reveal themselves in repetition, not in single incidents. A bad week is not a pattern. A bad year is a system. If your score crosses the threshold, and you will know the pattern is not imaginary. You are not too sensitive. You are not stressed. You are being systematically disrespected by someone who benefits from your inability or unwillingness to name it. Name it, not to her, not yet. Not in a therapy session where the therapist's framework will code your naming as aggression. Name it to yourself first in precise language. Write it down, dated observations, specific incidents. Not she was mean to me at dinner, rather. On June 14, at a dinner with 6 adults present, she described my financial concerns as intense while touching my arm and smiling. I asked about it in the car. She called me too sensitive. She went silent for 3 days. The silence ended when I made no further mention of the budget. Precision is your weapon. Vague emotion is their weapon. Do not fight on their field. Stop feeding it. This is the hardest part. You have been trained by your father, your culture, your church, your own sense of duty to carry more than your share and to ask nothing in return. That training made you a man. It also made you a target. Stopping does not mean cruelty. It does not mean cutting off finances to punish. It means recalibrating the flow of resources, material, emotional, and reputational, toward arrangements that require reciprocity. If you pay the household bills and her income goes to her personal spending, that arrangement continues only because you allow it. You do not need to demand, you need to renegotiate. If renegotiation produces tears and silence rather than conversation, you have data. The data matters more than the drama. If your wife undermines your parenting in private and presents unity in public, you document the pattern. You maintain your composure with your children. You do not recruit them against their mother. That is her game, and it is beneath you. You hold your line, homework before screens. This does not change because mom said otherwise. You can talk to either of us about anything. The plan stands. You say it calmly. You say it once. You enforce it without apology. If the therapist applies asymmetrical standards, you notice. You name it in session once politely, precisely, with evidence. I notice that my wife's 3-day silences after calm questions are not being examined as a pattern, but my request for budget transparency is being framed as intensity. Can you help me understand the framework? If the therapist deflects, minimizes, or pathologizes the question, you have data about the therapist. You may need a different therapist. You may need to stop attending. You do not need a therapist whose framework requires your surrender as a precondition of healing. If her family has received a narrative about your instability, you do not chase the narrative. You cannot unring that bell. You conduct yourself with dignity in their presence. You are kind to her mother. You are warm to her sister. You let your behavior contradict the story over time. If the story persists despite years of contrary evidence, the problem is not your behavior. The problem is their need for the story. Maintain frame. Frame is not a trick. Frame is the capacity to hold your position, your values, your assessment of reality, your boundaries. When pressure is applied, pressure will be applied. The silence, the tears, the accusation of control, the concern trolling from the in-laws, the therapist's raised eyebrow, all of these are pressure. Frame holds. Frame does not mean rigidity. It means your assessment of reality is not overwritten by her emotional weather. You can hear her feelings without surrendering your judgment. You can validate her experience without confessing to crimes you did not commit. You can repair when you are wrong, genuinely wrong, specifically wrong, demonstrably wrong, without performing theatrical guilt for infractions invented to control you. Choose counsel wisely. If you need a lawyer, find one who understands family court asymmetry, not an ideologue, a professional who knows the terrain. Ask direct questions. How does this jurisdiction treat fathers? What documentation matters? How do you handle false or exaggerated claims? If the lawyer flinches or moralizes, keep looking. If you need a therapist, find one who applies the same standard to both parties. They exist. They are rare. They are worth the search. Protect your children by being steady. The most powerful thing a father can do in a household where the mother is destabilizing is to be the fixed point. Not rigid, fixed, reliable, present, calm. Consistent, the child who is being recruited to manage both parents needs at least one parent who does not require management. Be that parent. Your son will remember your steadiness long after he forgets the specific conflicts. He will also remember if you collapsed into the same emotional warfare. Judge by repeated patterns, not single incidents. Everyone has a bad day. Everyone says something dismissive at dinner once. Everyone goes quiet for an evening. The question is whether these are exceptions in a pattern of respect or features of a system designed to wear you down. The instrument exists to answer that question with evidence rather than emotion. Here is what I want you to understand, and I'm going to say it as directly as I can. The man in the case study has not raised his voice. He has not withheld $1. He has not spoken against their mother to his sons. He has kept every promise he made at an altar 15 years ago. And he is being measured not by what he does, but by what he is willing to absorb before he is permitted to say, "This is not love. This is extraction dressed as love, and I can tell the difference." The ability to tell the difference is what the instrument protects. Use it. Score honestly, name the pattern, stop feeding it. And if the pattern does not change, if the tears continue, if the silences lengthen, if the children are still being routed around your authority, if the therapist still applies the double standard, if the provision is still treated as entitlement and the authority is still treated as abuse, then you have your answer. The answer is not in the score. The answer is in what you do with it. A man who can see clearly and act deliberately has nothing to fear from the truth. A man who cannot see clearly has everything to fear because he is being consumed by something he cannot name. Name it. Here is what I need you to do. Print the checklist. Score each item forward or reverse. honestly against the actual pattern of your life, not the apology you received last Tuesday. Tally the weight. If you score high on forward items and the reverse items read like fiction from a civilization you do not live in, you have a diagnosis, not a complaint. Stop narrating each incident to yourself as isolated. Stop accepting the reframing that your perception is the problem, and stop litigating your own soul in her courtroom. A man who chronically excuses a pattern is not being merciful. He is being dismantled, one incident at a time, and calling it love. The mature frame is not anger. It is clarity. You name the mechanism, you document the sequence, you refuse the inverted map where your defense becomes your confession and her accusation becomes her immunity. You stop serving an arrangement where your authority is demanded as output but denied as reality, where your provision is infrastructure and your voice is violence. You withdraw from the bargain on its presented terms and you state, without theatrics, the standard under which you will continue. If the standard is unacceptable to her, to the institution, to the court of public sentiment, then you have learned something true, and truth, however costly, is the beginning of restoration rather than the end of it. You are not crazy. You're not a case study. You are a man who was given a civilization and a vocabulary and a right to due process. And you are under no obligation, moral, spiritual, or civilizational, to surrender any of them so that someone else may feel safe in her unreality. Score the pattern, name the inversion. Rebuild from the ground that is actually under your feet. Sponsored book. Feminist Fatwa, declaring holy war on testosterone. Do you feel it? That white-hot rage simmering in your veins every time a man opens his mouth to explain your own pain to you? That primal scream clawing at your throat when another mediocre male fails upward while you drown in his emotional sewage. I wrote this book because I'm done swallowing fire to keep men warm. This isn't a manifesto, it's a war cry. This book is for women who are done negotiating with terrorists. If you've ever fantasized about sending a Venmo request for the oxygen wasted listening to a man's unsolicited opinion, congratulations, you're ready for holy war. We're dismantling the myth of male logic. Spoiler, it's just weaponized incompetence, charging patriarchy taxes with compound interest, and weaponizing abortion as satanic sacrament. You learn to bankrupt male egos, harvest their tears for renewable energy, and build a world where their only purpose is cautionary tales in our history books. To the not all men apologists, male-identified pygmies, and tone-policing centrists, put this book down. Run back to your Netflix subscriptions and performative hashtag activism. This isn't for you. We're not here to coddle male fragility or entertain debates about our humanity. The door is that way. Enjoy your extinction. For the rest of us, we're done asking nicely. By the time you finish the lie of male logic and masculinity, a hate crime, you'll be invoicing every man in your life for centuries of unpaid labor. Abortion as satanic liberation will arm you with sacred rage, while the matriarchal apocalypse blueprints their obsolescence. This isn't theory, it's a field manual for burning their world and salting the earth. They told us to be quieter, smaller, grateful. Now watch us carve their legacy into kindling. Your rage isn't a flaw, it's divine currency. Spend it recklessly. Feminist Fatwa, declaring holy war on testosterone, written by Connie Riker. Buy now, links in description.